it would take you not even 3 seconds to get it running. Docker run /d/p 9000:9000 Portainer to get it running at its most basic. We have relatively grand aspirations to be this central hub of control. So we want to be the glue in the middle of every single Docker deployment. So we want to be this hub in the middle of everything. So you.
Welcome back to the show, and today we're going to be looking at using Portainer.io for Docker container management. And I'm here with Neil Cresswell. He's the co-founder of Portainer.io, and he also founded a Docker consulting company in New Zealand, and he's got a cloud Docker fantastic company in Indonesia. I hope I'm scraping out okay, Neil.
Yeah, that's fine.
And Portainer is the leading way of managing all your Docker instances. So if you've got ColdFusion apps running in Docker, this lets you manage all the containers, the images, look at logs, consoles, how you create containers, look at the images you're creating them from. Basically everything to do with Docker, you can do it from within here. And it is open source, so it's free to get, and it's been downloaded 240 million times. 10 million downloads a week of Portainer.io are happening. So it's a very popular thing, well worth checking out. And we're going to drill into some of the details of this. And Neil is talking at Into the Box in April. So you can see him in full detail there. So welcome, Neil.
Thank you.
So just help us understand what exactly is Portainer.io, and do I need to keep the IO on the end of the name? I noticed that in your website. You can drop that? Okay.
Yeah. So the purpose behind Portainer was to provide a human-friendly way of managing Docker. When I first got exposed to Docker, I had months of migraines. It is an amazingly powerful tool. But it requires you to have a brain the size of a planet to understand, comprehend, remember all of the command line arguments. There's no command line pre-validations. You just simply have to know the commands, press enter, and hope they're right. I found that for developers who are used to working in that kind of operating model, then Docker was going to be very easy for them to use. But for everybody else, the other 95% of people in IT, they needed a much simpler way to drive and interact with Docker. So that's why we created Portainer was a mechanism that the average IT person can interact with Docker and drive it fundamentally.
So it basically gives you a graphical user interface onto your whole Docker swarm of instances.
Yeah, so the actual command line that you use to start Portainer should be the very last command line that you ever have to enter into Docker. Once Portainer is up and running, you can do every single feature or function that you can do in the command line inside our beautiful UI, and we've actually humanized it. We've humanized the inputs, we've humanized the responses and the error messages, so you know what's going on, and we make it very, very easy to create complex environments with a click of a mouse.
So do you have to have hundreds of Docker containers to use Portainer, or could you just have one container? Or
no, we support standalone Docker hosts. So you can have a single instance of Docker running on a Raspberry Pi, running Portainer and managing one or two containers. We've got quite a few people running Portainer on their NAS systems at home. You can run it in Docker Swarm environments spanning hundreds of hosts and thousands of containers. It's pretty much every possible scenario you can imagine. We've already covered. We actually even support the VMware integrated containers version of Docker. So you can even choose to run Portainer on top of VMware VIC as well.
So you can use it in your development environment. You can use it in production.
Absolutely.
It handles either way.
Yeah, and even better, you can have a single instance of Portainer that covers both prod and dev, and you can use our internal role-based access control to segment environments between production and dev.
Oh, so you can have multiple Docker swarms that you manage through this.
Yeah, so this is designed to be a single UI to manage all of your Docker environments. So you don't have to have multiple copies of Portainer running. You can have a single copy, and that one instance of Portainer can manage any number of endpoints. So they are either any number of standalone Docker hosts or any number of Docker Swarm clusters.
So
All
just in
from
theory,
one place.
in theory, in the future, if the whole internet was running in Docker, you could control the whole internet from one copy of Portainer.
In theory, that would need some enhancements to the UX, but yes, in theory.
Yeah. So let's just talk about some of the things that you can look at. I obviously you can get a list of all the containers you have. What can you see in those containers?
Well, inside those containers, they are simply running processes as you'd imagine. And if you want to interact with a container that is running, you would need to run Docker commands to attach to the running container or run a command inside it. You know, we give the ability to very quickly launch a console, and you are inside the container, and you can run whatever commands you want. You can see real-time performance stats. You can see real-time logs. You can pause the logs. You can export the log files. You can very, very precisely manage and monitor a running container. Now, obviously, as we move forward, containers are going to become less relevant because with Docker Swarm, you're talking about services and stacks, not containers. So we have a very similar feature set for stacks and services. So you can manage and monitor a service or a stack.
Great. And for listeners who haven't really used Docker, basically it's a virtual machine. So you can think of Portainer as like a control center for your virtual data center that you're implementing in Docker. Is that
Absolutely.
a fair idea?
That's the point. We give you the ability to manage the underlying Docker hosts that are running the containers, as well as the containers that are running within the environment. So you can see the hosts, you can pause them for maintenance. You can see their resources. You can basically manage anything you like regarding to the hosts, as well as all of the containers themselves.
And does it matter where those containers are located? You know, which cloud service or?
No, and that's actually the really good thing about Docker. You know, Docker is a technology that runs above the line. So where it's actually running the infrastructure is irrelevant. It can be inside your data center, it can be in Google, it can be in Amazon, it can be in Azure, it can be in anywhere. As long as the Docker hosts can route to each other, we can form a Docker cluster, and that cluster can be managed by Portainer. Even better, it doesn't even have to be the same operating system. You can have some of the hosts running Windows, some of them running Linux, and they'll still form a single cluster.
And where does Portainer itself run? Is it in a Docker container itself, or?
Of course. So and it's about 10 megabytes in size. So for everything we do, it's a very lean container. It's based off the Scratch base image, which means that there is nothing inside it. So it is very, very secure, very small attack surface, very lean.
Yeah, I imagine security is pretty important, because if you're controlling all these containers, someone with evil intent could do naughty things if they could get in there.
Yeah, what's intriguing is we have actually taken what is a relatively weak security model from Docker, because with Docker security, or the actual Docker daemons, you either open it to everybody, which means anybody who knows the IP address of the Docker host can cause havoc. And you see that quite often with the crypto mining hijacks. Or the only other option is that you actually secure the Docker daemon with TLS, and then you have to share these TLS certs with all of your developers. But again, if you have the cert, you can do anything. There is no way to petition a Docker host to say this user can do this and this user can do that. There's no way. So we actually took that shortcoming and added that capability into Portainer. So as long as Portainer is the only system that has a TLS key for your host, there is no chance of anyone getting into the host directly. All interactions will be via Portainer, and then via our own access control. You've muted yourself.
Sorry. This a lot of hackers who'd love to get control of a bunch of Docker containers. So definitely good.
There are some serious crypto hacking things out there where people are actually spinning up Bitcoin miners on exposed Docker hosts and generating a lot of money. So you definitely do not want to be running Docker open. And even if you do actually secure it,
well, that's rather
is for your key.
That's a clever idea, because the biggest cost involved in crypto mining is the electricity and the machines. So if you can steal someone else's Docker containers, then you've got, it doesn't really matter how slow it takes you to generate those coins. Yeah,
and in fact, I just saw on Twitter a little while ago that Uber themselves were hacked, and someone actually injected a crypto miner on their Docker environment. And it just this comes back. You really have to be careful to accurately secure your environment, and then secure it in such a way that no one has unlimited access to the Docker daemon. And the only way of doing that is with Portainer or with other paid options.
Well, and Portainer being free, it seems to me it would be a better option.
Yeah, well, it depends. Yeah, obviously there are some people who would like the benefits of Docker Enterprise Edition with their full fat UCP option. Portainer is a completely viable alternate. It is technically equivalent. But yes,
now
without the cost.
Great. Now you mentioned stats earlier. Can you see the CPU usage on each container, or how much memory it's using, or what?
Absolutely. So we can see in real time the CPU usage, we can see the memory usage, and we can see the network throughput. We can also see currently running processes inside a container, and we can actually take action if we need to. We can kill or restart a container if need be.
Now I know you said you can see the logs of what's going on in a container. What about if a container, the process just dies? Do you get a post-mortem on the container to find out what happened, or?
Kind of, and it depends how well the person who built the original container image has built it. If they have built it and are accurately capturing the error logs, then yes, we would see that. If not, then obviously we're also blind.
Right.
A lot of that comes down to the quality of the actual container images, and I always recommend that if people are using container images that other people have created, they are versions created by a vendor as opposed to the community. Because if it's created by a vendor, there's actually been a degree of diligence gone into ensuring that the container is correctly logging.
Now, if you see that a container has got a little out of control, can you kind of log in to it and kind of poke around yourself, or?
Absolutely, you can. Yep. So again, you can just bring up the console, and you're inside the console of the container, and you can run any kind of command you want to, or if you really just wanted to smash it with a hammer, you can click on the container and just click restart, and within a few seconds it's dead and up again.
Now, can you automatically control when containers get started up based on load, like some of the swarm solutions out there, or is that not part of this?
So there's no auto scaling capability inside the Docker API. So Docker lets you manually scale up and scale down by running a command, but there's no auto scaling. That is something that we're going to add. We're going to have extra integrations monitoring performance, and as performance changes, we want to automatically scale. But at the moment, no, we don't have that capability.
Okay, well, great that you're going to add that in the future. And then, what about container creation? Can you control all that, or do you have to go back to the command line for that, or?
No, the whole thing is cradle to grave. So we basically let you build an image. So if you have created a Docker file, and a Docker file is fundamentally a descriptor of how to build an image, we will let you take that file and build an image from it. So you can go into Portainer images section and click build image, paste in your Docker file or link to it, and it will build you an image from that image, you can then deploy the container or deploy a service. You can scale it. You can commit any changes you make in that running container back as an image. You can push the image up to a repo. It's pretty much limitless. As I said before, that once you run Portainer, there is absolutely no need to go back to the command line.
Great. And then what about volumes and networks? Can you control those too, or?
Yeah, so we have full control of any of the inbuilt volume management, so Docker volume management and Docker networking management. And we also integrate with the Docker plugins. So if there are any third-party plugins for storage management or network management, you can also manage those from within Portainer. And we actually have released an integration with a company called storage.com, which is where you can actually now manage every element of the underlying physical storage from within Portainer as well. So not only can you manage your persistent volumes, but you can now also manage the underlying storage environment too. And we have a very similar aspiration to do that for networking as well. So using external network plugins, be able to manage the physical networking as well as just the overlay networking.
And then what about if you've got a cluster of containers, a swarm? Can you manage that, or?
Absolutely. So you can manage the entire swarm instance, which includes managing the managers, determining which is the leader, managing the workers. You can drain workers so that they any running container is stopped and scheduled elsewhere, or you can pause a worker so that no new containers are started. You can also apply labels to containers, to hosts. So you can basically create some human-friendly labels that say this host has high memory. This host is licensed for Microsoft SQL or Oracle. And then when you start a container or a service, you can then apply a constraint that says only start on a host that has this matching label. So it gives you very fine-grained control.
Well, it sounds amazing. How easy is it to install it?
A single command line. So it would take you not even 3 seconds to get it running. Docker run /d/p 9000:9000 Portainer to get it running at its most basic. But yeah, it's a single, very simple command line, and up it comes.
Now, I know it's open source, but what about documentation or support? Does that exist at all? Or?
Yeah, so we have everything documented on portainer.readthedocs.io. So we have a vast array in there. We also have a Swagger file of our API. So anything you can do inside the UI, you can also do through our own API, and that's all in Swagger Hub. We also have a very active Slack group, portainer.slack.com. Which is where most people would come for interactive support with us. And both myself and Anthony, my fellow co-founder, we both actively answer support questions in there.
Great. So anything else we should know about Portainer?
We are aiming to, well, we have relatively grand aspirations to be this central hub of control. So we want to be the glue in the middle of every single Docker deployment. This single UI that lets you manage not only your containers and your hosts and Swarm, but also the physical infrastructure. But we also want to have a single interface that is for monitoring the actual container availability and alerting on performance. We want to be able to monitor security between containers. We want to be able to accurately manage centralized logging for all of the containers. We want to have integrations with CI/CD. So we want to be this hub in the middle of everything. So you only have to log into Portainer as your single dashboard for your entire microservice platform. So much more than just being a simple Docker UI. We want to be this microservice, coordinator UI.
Well, microservices are a very cool way for future development in software. So
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's exciting. You're doing that. Now, are there any competitors to Portainer, or?
There are a few, and I would prefer that they're unnamed, but there are a few. We've had a few fall down in the past. When we first started, there were Shipyard and Panamax were the two really active other products in the market, as well as Docker UI. All three of those products now no longer really cease to exist. There are a few other Docker Swarm centric UI tools. They don't have anywhere near the market penetration we do at this point in time. I'm hoping that we can keep leading the market. Obviously, the market is still very focused on Kubernetes, though, as opposed to Swarm. We are very Swarm-centric at this stage.
Does Portainer work with Kubernetes in some way?
Not at all. Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
Okay.
No, and that's something we are considering. However, there are so many Kubernetes UIs out there. We would have to have a real clear point of difference for that to be worthwhile.
Makes sense. So you're really involved in the Docker world. You run a consulting company that helps people with Docker. You helped found a Docker container service provider. You co-founded Portainer.io. Why are you so proud to use Docker?
Because it is simply amazing. It just solves so many problems. I was working with VMware-based technologies for 20 years, and I thought that was amazing. This is the whole next level. It takes away so many issues that people have around trying to share or standardize environments. This Docker, in my view, is technology finally catching up with marketing. Marketing for a very long time has basically talked about hybrid cloud and the ability to move workloads seamlessly between data centers and environments, and it just wasn't really possible. Whereas with Docker, it's completely possible. It makes it very, very easy to spin up environments and scale them, and it really does align well to this whole agile mindset of let's try things, fail fast. Docker lets you do that. If you're still stuck in a world of virtual machines, it's very much more legacy and static, and it's nowhere near as dynamic.
So what do you think it would take to make Docker even more alive this year?
I think that Docker is going to go crazy with their Kubernetes support. So with Docker adding Kubernetes into their Enterprise Edition product, I think it's going to really commoditize the whole orchestrator layer. For the last, almost 2 years, it's been this all-out battle between Swarm or Kubernetes, which is better, and it's really served no real purpose. Each of them had their own unique strength and weakness. So rather than being out there battling Swarm versus Kubernetes, Docker have said, well, let's just run both of them, because that is not the real value. The real value is on everything around it. How do you embrace and use this technology to build microservices, as opposed to an argument around the orchestrator? So now that Docker have kind of killed that argument, I think it's going to be much more focus on all of the ancillary products that help make Docker better and more tightly integrated into IT operations, as opposed to this thing that's deployed at the request of the dev team and the ops team being told, here, catch, run this. Now ops team are going to have to be empowered with tools to actually run this thing in production.
Now, we mentioned earlier that you're getting about 10 million downloads every single week, and there's 240 million downloads total of Portainerio. How does that compare to the total Docker universe? Is there any measurement of how many?
I have no idea. I've actually asked Docker many times if there was a better way to see download counts on Docker Hub. Docker Hub maxes out at 10 million downloads. So you can actually rate and rank all of the Docker image providers, but basically it stops at 10 million. So when we got over 10 million, I asked Docker, is there a way to change your metrics so you can show when people are achieving 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, 500 million, a billion, and there's not. So there's no easy way of seeing who are the real winners with regards to market share.
Yeah, it's not like YouTube where you can have a billion downloads. It's 10 million and that's it. Yeah.
It's also very hard to monetize those downloads as well. Docker Hub is completely open. Anyone can download the images without paying a single thing.
Right.
So I think it'll be very good for Docker to extend their Docker store concept so that you could charge a token amount for a download. Because obviously we are self-funded. All of our dev efforts are funded, through our own working capital. It would be very nice to get at least token amounts on every download to help us further development.
Maybe they need to create a Docker token and have an ICO, and then they can pay you in Docker tokens.
Absolutely.
They could call it a Doken, maybe.
Dolphin.
Dolphin. There you go. Yeah. So I know you're flying a long way to Austin, Texas from either New Zealand or Jakarta.
Yep.
What are you looking forward to at Into the Box?
I am looking forward to sharing it, just how easy we can make Docker. It still astounds me how many people are using Docker either in a standalone host mode. They've not actually embraced Swarm, or if they have embraced Swarm, they're really trying to figure out how best to use it. There are no real best practices. So I'm really hoping I can share my own experiences and also how people can use Portainer to adhere to best practices for deploying services and volumes and networks.
If someone was thinking of trying this, I know Portainer itself is free, but what other costs would be involved in setting up a small, development or production set of instances?
Not much at all. I mean, you can actually run this across some Raspberry Pis. So if you wanted a real low cost test, then go buy a Raspberry Pi. Otherwise, you can just go to demo.portainer.io and run our online demo.
That's a free demo. You get
it's a free online demo. You basically get to use the environment. It is not actually restricted in any way. In fact, we quite often have users breaking our demo environment. But we chose not to actually lock it down in any way, so you can fully experience what it's like to manage an environment. But every 30 minutes it actually resets. So you're free to do anything you like for 30 minutes. Then it'll basically reset again.
Got it. So you really can't mine too many Bitcoins in that time.
No, you can't. Thankfully.
Well, great. So if people want to find you online, what are the best ways to do that?
So Portainer.io Twitter feed, portainer.slack.com for support. We are very active on Twitter, very interactive. So you can ask us anything. There's also we have a very good user community, and those users have created a lot of blog articles. They've created a lot of YouTube videos, and we try to share those through our Twitter feed. So if you're just starting out and you want to watch a video, either search for Portainer on YouTube or come to Twitter, and you'll see all of the links tweeted out.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today, Neil.
No problem. I can't wait.